for Community Planning and Development. I'd like to thank you all for attending this important workshop. Show of hands for those that have already attended workshop number 1. All right, so we have a few repeat visitors. That's great. That's exciting that you're actually following the process. As you know, the comprehensive plan is updated once every 7 years. It's an important exercise. For those that are not familiar with the current comprehensive plan, I'd encourage you to go online to look at the document. It's a policy document. I want to emphasize that. Oftentimes people think the comprehensive plan has architectural drawings and it actually has diagrams. It doesn't. It's heavy on text. It's heavy on policy, it's heavy on visioning, and that's why it's so critical at this junction for you to be familiar with what's in the current comprehensive plan. So as we make recommendations for amendments and for changes, that you're familiar with where it's changing from the old to the new. So that's the first soundbite that I want to make, just emphasizing the need to be familiar with what's in the comprehensive plan today, so that moving forward you be familiar with the changes that are going to be made. So I'm going to invite our mayor to come forward at this time to provide opening remarks, and he'll be followed by our Councilman Keys for District 2, that will also be making a few comments before we start out with the evening's proceedings. Thank you. Sure, you can speak from here.
Good evening. Welcome to the wonderful city of North Miami, the city on the move. Believe it or not, we are on the move, and tonight, as we all know it, this is yet another opportunity for us to have a lot of input from the city residents, business owners, entrepreneurs, and as well as civic organizations. And these are input that will be used in our next complaint that will be enacted for the next 7 years. So this is a very, very important. Is this the last workshop? Okay, so this is the last workshop, so which means tonight is a very important meeting, and so for it, since the last complaint that lasted about 7 years, and a lot of things have changed in our city, but yet a lot of issues have yet to be addressed, such as flooding, and we understand that flooding, and we're talking about sea level rise, a lot of things that are going on. It's not just a North Miami issue. It's a Miami-Dade County issue, and either going toward Broward and even higher in the state of Florida. So we are concerned about these issues, and as a city and as a government, it behooves us to take the proactive, to play the proactive role in planning for the next 7 years. So we are counting on you, the Melgren Group, and as well as our very own planning Community Planning and Development Department, and I trust that you will do a wonderful job in guiding us the right way. But only one thing that I must say. I went to the MPO board meeting last week. There are a lot of things going on. A lot of things are going to be moving in Miami-Dade County in the next 10 years. I do not want North Miami to be behind the bandwagon. I am not going to be in an organization that is going to be behind the bandwagon. And they're talking about restructuring the MPO board. And they want this, I mean, crazy enough, I heard some of the group of the mayors in the MPO board, they even want to relinquish our power, our authority to shape Miami-Dade County. And they want to relinquish that, they want to forego that to Tallahassee. I'm not making it up. This is what one of the mayors actually stated in our meeting, that for us, stated for, I mean, they even went to Tallahassee during their days to lobby for this. For Tallahassee to decide how the MPO board should be structured, and how should we move forward in redesigning Miami-Dade County, especially in the way of transportation. This is absurd. So in other words, what they're trying to tell people, you don't need to really go out and vote, or only vote for Tallahassee state rep and senators. So to me, this is absurd. We are a people, we are a community who pay taxes. So therefore, we should be involved in the decision-making process. And you look to the north, west, east, south, you see cranes everywhere. You see cranes everywhere, except in North Miami. Except in North Miami. And according to the information that I get from Tanya, we have less than 1% of our land is actually vacant. Less than 1%. So we cannot go all horizontal. The only way we can go is up. The only way we can go is up. A change sometimes is very difficult to embrace change. It's like this city is going through a metamorphosis, and sometimes it's painful. It's growing pain. But we have to simply deal with it. We have to, and I'm going to repeat that same quote from Obama. We did not come to fear change, but to embrace it and shape it the best way we can, so our children and our grandchildren can see that the people who came before them actually were thinking in the right way. And I'm sure 50 years ago, there were not 60,000 people living in North Miami. Now we have above 60,000 people living in North Miami. I don't see anything wrong with departing from the status quo. If the status quo is not working for us, for God's sake, we have to look for some other alternatives. That's the way I see it. And I'm really encouraging everybody to really embrace that vision for North Miami. We want North Miami to be beautiful. I don't want us to lag. And you remember, we used to be number what? Number 4 in the whole Miami-Dade County. Now we are number 6. We used to be 3, then to 4, and then now 6. So, and when we look at our downtown redevelopment plan, I don't know if you're familiar with it. I'm sure you are in some way. And you visit other cities that don't have any vacant land. I mean, it only makes sense. I don't want to say the other word, but it only makes sense for us to go vertical. And vertical is beautiful, actually. Let's just try it. Let's just try it. Like I said, sometimes we have to make decisions that the people who voted us in office may not be comfortable with. But you voted us to plan and to look at the experts who are telling us what to do. They are the experts. If you come to, like, I'm an internist. If you have a tumor in your brain, you wouldn't be calling me. You would be calling a brain surgeon. But if you go to the brain surgeon who discovered that you have a tumor and that tumor is growing, and he or she recommends a treatment plan, but you decided to go to, how can you go against the treatment plan that for the very same surgeon that you are paying to actually consult with? Am I making any sense? This is 2015. I want to see cranes in North Miami, and I'm sure a lot of other people want to see cranes in North Miami. We want to see buildings being erected. We want to see companies like IBM, big IT companies. That's the only way we can attract these companies. If we are known as a city who wants to stay as a drive-through city, no major company will look at North Miami as a city where they can come and put their corporate offices. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So having said that, I think we would be going the right way if we come with a comp plan that will allow for these things to happen. And we have the first new building being built in the past 26 years. I'm learning that for the past 26 years, we haven't had any new building in this city. And we have some other buildings that are included in our comp plan. I mean, not the comp plan, in our downtown redevelopment plan. And we have the streets that need to be reshaped. We have intersections that need to be redone. And we have to work closely with the Florida Department of Transportation, and again, along with our consulting group, to see to it that North Miami does not stay behind. We don't want North Miami to be a city that stays behind, because the companies, they are driving through, they are looking around, and they are taking note. They're looking for some buzzwords for them to make their decisions, whether to go to Miami Gardens, whether to go to Aventura, to Stony Isles, Miami Design District. Miami Design District. So I didn't plan to really talk too much. I really planned to just welcome you, and but this came to mind, and we had the opportunity to also visit the new the Miami Art Museum, which is Science Museum. See, I had too much of science. Now I'm into art now, and. It's a very, very beautiful. It's a wonder, actually. They have the planetarium. You should see the engineering that is involved in developing that planetarium that they are building, and it's something to see. Those of you who do have the time, please take a moment to go downtown Miami and see that work of art in progress. So, guys, let's go up. Let's go vertical. Let's put cranes in North Miami, so that we don't stay behind. Otherwise, we will stay behind. Mm. Thank you.
And now we're going to have a few words from Councilwoman Keys, the council person for District 2.
I just want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you, staff, for indulging me for a second workshop, and the Melgren Company for planning group to be here with us. 7 years ago, the citizens attended about 3 or 4 workshops. Was that our first comp plan we did 7 years ago, or was just 20 years? We did a very major rehaul of our comp plan 7 years ago, and the citizens were given the ability to do input. We had little paper clips and pins, and we all really spent a lot of time inputting and telling the planners what our vision for the city is. So that's why I wanted another workshop to hear what the citizens' vision is tonight. We want it to be transparent. We don't want you to do a plan. We go, vote, and that's it. So we want the citizens to know where we're going with this. There, I think, are a few new modules. I have not seen the revised comp plan or the changes, but we have sustainability, which is now required with the tidal rising and global warming. Something else we've got to do now is work on sustainability in our city. Tanya's going to be an expert on that. So that's going to be a new, I guess, a new section of it. I've read the comp plan several times, but it's a good plan. But we did have this little tiny blurb about a transit station possibly coming to North Miami, and this is a reality. I believe it's Tri-Rail. We're supposed to have a train depot coming to North Miami, which is going to help our transit. It's going to bring commuters. It's going to bring economy, what's a business, and we need to make sure that that is included, not as just say it might be coming, it's coming. We've got to make sure that we have that transit corridor. It is going to be at the entrance of our downtown. Lastly, we last year, 2 years ago, passed the downtown redevelopment, and we are going to be developing downtown. So we have a whole new view and vision for downtown. Yes, moving up, rising, higher buildings. So that should be in our comp plan also. So I appreciate everybody coming here, and I guess we'll talk about it later, what everybody wants to do.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Michelle Melgren. I am the principal of the Melgren Planning Group. Just for a little background, which I neglected to give the last time, so I will do it this time. My firm is a professional planning, zoning, and land use consulting firm. We've been in business for about 17 or 18 years now, and I was actually here in the city of North Miami when the last comp plan happened. I was the consultant at that time, and there were, as the council member pointed out, a number of workshops that took place at that time, and I'll get a little bit more into it as I go through my presentation. So we have a little history with the city is my point, and have kind of watched the growing pains. So it's interesting to see how the city is progressing as a city on the move. Having said that, I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. Tonight I'm going to go through this, and then we're going to have a discussion. We're going to open it up for comments. One of the things that's really important to this process is getting everyone's feedback. We want to hear your views, and we want to make sure that these views and opinions and ideas are reflected in the comprehensive plan, because this is a plan, it's a policy document that's adopted by the City Council, but it is a reflection of the citizens' desires and needs for their own city. So this is the first step of this process. It's called the Evaluation and Appraisal Report Process, or what we refer to as the EAR. And it actually started in September of last year, when the city wrote a letter as required to the Department of Economic Opportunity, which is the state land planning agency here in the state of Florida, saying that we would be updating the comprehensive plan. They sent the determination letter, and then we are required to prepare the update, send it to the state within 1 year. So the purpose of this workshop this evening is to review the comprehensive plan, update purpose and process, to talk about the city, a profile of a review of the city's profile, and we're going to go through the discussion of the first workshop that was held a couple of months ago. Now, what is a comprehensive plan? For those of you that didn't attend the first workshop, it is required by Chapter 163 of Florida statutes, and it's a policy document, as I indicated, that guides future development in a very responsible manner. The purpose of it is to ensure that sufficient services and facilities are available to accommodate future growth. So in other words, if you have additional density and intensity, you also have to have the infrastructure to support it. There has to be sufficient roadways, there has to be sufficient sewer capacity and water capacity. And it contains a number of elements to it, which I'll go through in a moment, but it's a tool to guide or to govern decision making, and it's something, as Tanya said, is kind of the Bible of the planning department. We even have land development regulations or zoning regulations that, by Florida law, implement the comprehensive plan that is adopted. So what goes into this comprehensive plan? It is, as the planning manager said, a very text-heavy document, and it has all of the required elements, any number of them, as you see listed on the left here, from future land use all the way down to capital improvements. And it can have optional elements, and the city of North Miami's plan currently has one optional element now, which is the economic element. And we're going to be adding a second element that is optional, but it's going to talk about climate change, resiliency, and sustainability. So the comprehensive plan is structured so that it's got goals, and then it's got implementing objectives and policies. And I put a sample of a goal, an objective, and a policy that's in your plan today. So, for example, you can see that the goal, number one goal of the future land use element, is to encourage redevelopment in order to enhance economic base of the city and improve the aesthetic quality of the built environment and provide a range of housing and employment opportunities to accommodate, serve, and employ the projected population while protecting established single-family neighborhoods. That's a pretty lofty goal. So then we have any number of objectives and policies that we formulate and include to try and implement that goal. And this is just an example of one objective that you see here, which is to establish land use designations that guide redevelopment through transit-oriented development, urban form principles, densities and intensities along major corridors, which are listed there. And one of the policies that would implement that is that the city shall ensure that facilities and services are available to serve the proposed redevelopment through a concurrency management system. It's a system that you set up basically that contains what we call level of service standards, and again, it just ensures that your facilities and services like roadways, water, and sewer are in place to serve any proposed development. So you would wonder why you would want to even update the comprehensive plan. Well, the update is required statutorily every 7 years. We have to go through and evaluate the plan and update it. We have to go through, it's required by state law, to identify changes to state law that have occurred, and anything that affects the plan, we have to update the plan in that regard. And then once we've updated the plan with respect to that and added new goals and objectives as appropriate, we transmit it off to the state for review by September 15th. So there's a whole process that's involved in the comprehensive plan. I'm not going to go through everything here, but generally the overview is that the city staff sends off the letter of determination, which I covered earlier in the presentation, and then we begin the plan update process. We had a workshop, which was in February, I believe, to get input from residents and stakeholders. Phase 3 that you see there is actually preparing the evaluation and appraisal report, or the EAR document, the comp plan update, which is what my office has been working on diligently. And we have a second workshop, as you can see here in phase 4, April, May in the middle there, to get more input that we want to incorporate that into the plan, into the goals and objectives. Then we're going to have, we take it to your planning commission for review and recommendation to the city council. The city council will adopt it on first reading. We ship it off to the state. They review it and comment on it, and we address their comments if they have any, and then it goes for final adoption. You can see it's kind of a rather detailed process. So this year update focus has several focus actually. One is the economic element, and we have the addition of redevelopment policies, both for the downtown, for brownfields, and for sustainability. Whoops, sorry. I apologize. There's the plan update timeline, as I just mentioned. So here's the focus. So we have addition of redevelopment policies, which include addressing the downtown, brownfields, and sustainability. We're going to address the transportation element by addition of goals, objectives, and policies related to transit-oriented development, because you are going to get that commuter rail station within the next 2 years. We're adding the climate change element, and that'll be a new element, and that's very important, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And in the other elements, we'll incorporate the capital improvement element and a water supply plan update, which is required by state law. Now, we've had some discussion here about greater densities and intensities. We've heard from members of the city council, and when I was here 7 or 8 years ago, it was a big deal at that time. It was in the charter. There was a charter change that took the height restriction of 4 stories out of the charter, and we came forward with recommendations for additional height and density around the city. Some of that was changed. I know that the mayor said that the elected officials should defer to the consultant to make the best recommendations in the best interest of the city, but I'll be very candid with you this evening. We made some recommendations, and some of those at that time by that elected body were not accepted, and there was kind of a compromise made, and that's the plan that you have in place today. So right now, we are not considering changing height building or change in density and intensity at this time, because before you do that, you can't just change height and density. You have to ensure that the infrastructure is in place to serve it. That is water and sewer. You have an aging infrastructure here that, as I understand, is running at or near capacity. Before you just arbitrarily pick a bigger height or a greater density, the first step would be to add a policy to study what additional density could be supported and whether or not there's sufficient capacity, and what would be involved in expanding the capacity. In other words, capital improvements to water and sewer facilities to accommodate growth. That's not only a logical planning thing to do, it's something that the state of Florida would require us to do, and would not approve a plan that could not justify any additional height, density, or intensity. So the last comprehensive plan was done, as I mentioned, in 2007. At that time, the focus was on redevelopment and economic development. We did identify potential expansion of the FEC corridor. It was kind of a wish at that point, but we thought that it might be appropriate, and as it turns out, it's actually coming to fruition. And we did establish new mixed-use and low-density, low-medium land use categories and overlays, particularly in the downtown area. Well, we updated that plan, and then right after that, the economy tanked. We had a bad recession, and we did the charter change there. Then we had the recession, and there was no development proposed. And I can tell you, as a consultant in the private sector, it wasn't just in North Miami. It was pretty much an economic devastation everywhere, as you know. So nothing was being built anywhere. But I have been informed by the planning department that just within the last 6 months alone, there have been 3 new proposals that have come in, which are shown here: the Causeway Village, the Golden Hills condos, and the Parkview Villa developments. And apparently none of these developers have requested extra height. My point is that while we changed the comprehensive plan to go up to 15 stories, no one has come in to test that yet or request that. The market, so far at least, hasn't shown a request for that, and there have been no requests for it or variances to go that high. Everything that's coming in is about 4 to 6 stories or so, as you see here. You cannot, okay. But no one's even gone up to the 15 stories. Yeah, let me finish the presentation, and then we want to have this discussion, because it's a good discussion, but let me just run through this quickly. I'm just going to go through a real quick snapshot of North Miami. If you were here before at the last workshop, bear with me, because it's what we presented again, but you can see your municipal size. You're the 6th largest in Miami-Dade County. Your main businesses are health and medical, bank and financial, professional services. Your unemployment's a little higher than the average in the state of Florida, hovering at about 9.8% compared to 5.8 in the state of Florida, and your population is about 61,500 people. So you've had a gain of population of about 5%. You can see a snapshot of the age breakdown, but the one that's really telling is when you combine all of these, the majority of people in the city of North Miami are ages 20 to 64. It's a very young population. It is a workforce population, and that can be a real asset to the city. So a few hot topics as the agenda suggested. The comprehensive plan will be addressing the commuter rail station, again with additional goals, objectives, and policies, addressing transit-oriented development, and the great economic potential that the transit station can bring to the city. There is potential for land use and redevelopment potential around the station, which you can see here. And this is the Tri-Rail Coastal Link Station Area Opportunities Report that was prepared. So within about a half-mile radius, tremendous potential for redevelopment. The second thing we're going to be addressing in our new climate element is going to be sea level rise and saltwater intrusion. This is a real thing, whether or not you believe it's from global warming or it's just naturally occurring, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that it is occurring, and as a coastal community, it's very important to have goals, objectives, and policies to address this as the city goes forward. In addition to sea level rise, of course, there's the issue of inundation where flooding easily occurs. So the city, your city here really should be applauded for the tremendous gains that it has made in climate resiliency, and the city has undertaken any number of steps and strides towards that, as far as a policy framework for climate resiliency, providing a definition for the adaptation areas, getting federal legislation to create and fund new infrastructure, and a resolution that the city of North Miami adopted to implement the Regional Climate Action Plan and a Greenprint sustainability plan. So you can see here, these are the strides that the city itself has taken. We have goals, objectives in the comprehensive plan, the resolution for climate change. The Chapter 20 has had additional regulations regarding tree protection. Chapter 29 in the land development regulations talks about green buildings and the leadership in energy and efficiency design. We have the creation of a sustainability administrator here, a position within the city, a floodplain management resolution. There's water conservation policies, giveaways and programs, the recycling that's going on, energy efficiency. There's the NOMI shuttle bus to stay runs on biodiesel fuel that allows for low greenhouse gas emissions, and there are community gardens that are cropping up, no pun intended. There's sustainable practices inventories, energy audits, planting site assessment and urban tree canopy master plan, the comprehensive plan update and the climate change element that I mentioned that we're going to be including, and miscellaneous is just pursuing additional grants for tree planting. The city of North Miami has some tremendous potential for economic growth with not only the commuter rail that's coming in, but close by there's going to be the All Aboard Florida, and while it doesn't have a station here, it could have a positive effect on North Miami. This is the train that's supposed to go from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Orlando. So there's that. You have great schools and institutions of higher education here, the potential for intermodal centers, and we can come up with some downtown parking strategies address in redevelopment. There's the transit-oriented development, which is always a positive for any city. Great streets, and we can build resiliency into the infrastructure so that it's also an amenity. And if you look at the two drawings on the bottom there, you can notice the differences. The one on the right, in that area there, it's like an extra land area that was added to help keep flooding and inundation from occurring. So I'm going to go through the workshop results from the last one. In the last workshop, we did some exercises, and we wanted people to give us their opinion of how they view North Miami now. And these are called word clouds. And in these word clouds, the bigger the words, is the more often it was mentioned in people's responses in the workshop. So you can see that one of the number one concerns was no trees, followed by that it's second class, not enough opportunities, and nothing happening. Smaller things are social disconnect, a 1950s mentality, inactive unemployment, clutter, no real downtown. None of these are really very positive comments, and this is, if you will notice, in fact, I don't think any of them are, something that we want to change. And these are the perceptions of residents. So we asked residents, then, what do you see for the future of North Miami? You know, if you had to put your future vision glasses on, and we see job opportunities, and we see that it's larger, as if to say bigger or better, it would be vibrant, and that MoCA, clearly the museum is a key player here, along with smaller things, better public spaces, high-rise development. High-rise was mentioned again, great streets, that it's connected, it's a better income, and amazing central downtown was mentioned. So these are great things to strive for. And then we asked participants what they thought the biggest challenge was to achieving this vision of the future. And it was interesting. A lot of it was kind of branding and marketing related. Perception was the number one, as you can see, followed by congestion, a branding appeal, community involvement, lack of a future vision, transportation, and then we have some smaller things there, opportunities, a clear direction, education attainment, and things like that. So that's kind of a snapshot of what happened in the last workshop. Ask for solutions. Jobs, common vision, businesses, those are the big things, followed by thinking outside the box, alternative transportation. Code enforcement was mentioned a number of times, as well as businesses and PR for professionals, and a little lesser by courting major industries, thinking ahead, and incentivizing growth. So kind of echoing what we heard the mayor say here this evening. So we look forward to working together, and we look forward to getting some input. What we're going to do now is my associate Eric Swanson here is going to go around the room. This setting isn't really conducive to the last workshop where we were around the table. We want to hear from each of you what your thoughts are, and if you can speak a little slowly, I'm going to open up a Word document and start typing down the comments that you make so you can see them. So start up here in the front. Okay. Let me get a Word document going here. Hang on just a second.
All right, please let the crowd know your name and your thoughts.
Wait a second.
This is also live, Michelle.
So we've got it recorded?
Yeah, we do.
Well, it's all right. I can do this.
Testing. Yes, it is.
Where's my Word? Help me here. I want a Word document.
Let me get that. Microsoft Office. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
I got it. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jean Castor, and some call me Gene Castor. I'm a concerned resident of the city of North Miami. I was also on the Planning Commission board recently. I've been on there for several years. I'd like to first commend the mayor for recognizing the change that the city needs. Having been on the board, and I hope that the other council members come on board with the mayor to make the changes that we need, because we need this change. This is the time. I remember being on the board. We've had several developers come before us, and it seems as if the developers want to build high, but they're limited. And they're limited because of a number of reasons. Obviously, we cannot go higher than a certain amount of stories, and the density is not high enough. Myself, my colleague, Kenny, Bill here, have made suggestions. We've made different suggestions, a number of suggestions, but nothing has done, obviously. This is the time, and I don't think we should miss this opportunity. Again, I'm very glad that the mayor is on board. It's exciting to me to see that. We need to put politics aside and look at the city's issue. I'm okay with housing. Having low-income housing, that's fine, but we need a mixture and not do it. And if we find, I know there's some hoops that we have to go through to be able to perhaps make the changes. There's infrastructure's issue. I get that. Let's do something. Let's exercise every opportunity and every possibility to get it done. I think something wrong with the mic here. But anyhow, I won't talk. I will not talk too much. Let's get this happen. Let's make it happen.
Anybody else? Yeah, we can go down. Yeah, William Prevotel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. Um, I have to be frank. I've been on the Planning Commission for 9 or so years. During this last year, our Planning Commission, on a monthly basis, knew the comp plan was coming up for review and had specifically made formal requests for our community planning and development to give us some information to study so that it could be done somewhat in an educated fashion, in an informed fashion, so that we wouldn't be blindsided last minute dealing with these issues. Until this morning, I had not received a single piece, not a single page regarding the comp plan after 12 months. And last night when I went to the town, to our council meeting, it was said that this is the last of the workshops. And it dawned on me, the last of the workshops, we must have something there to present. There must be something. And I'm still not too sure if we have really anything, because I don't see any nuts and bolts, line by line or street by street proposal for anything. And the one thing I did catch, and most disturbing, and I have to say, Michelle was kind enough to take my call this morning after I had not heard from the city, that she took my call and I said, you know, what can we look forward to? What are the changes that we should, you know, support and be enthusiastic about, and that will supplement, that will reinforce our direction? And Michelle said that, you know, her directive was basically to have no change in density, no change in height. Basically status quo. Sort of saying that we look around and despite the mayor's very eloquent presentations, multiple presentations on the direction of the city, despite having a downtown committee, despite having the CRA and people, and I've gone to Board of Adjustment meetings, I've gone to Planning Commission meetings, I've gone to all these other meetings of talking about how we're going to have a bigger, better North Miami, and the conclusion is the same is working out great for us. It's really, really, it's incredibly disturbing. And people want to know, well, why aren't they? Well, it's the economics. Well, we all went through the economics, and so did the entire region. But if you now look around to all the neighborhoods, you can see cranes and development going on all over. It's all very promising, everywhere but here. Except for when you see projects such as this, the lowest grade projects. And why? Why do we have any of these projects that are going? Why are any of them going through planning? Why do they go to Biscayne Landing? Because they're all government subsidized. Nobody wants to be here. It doesn't work. And nobody's gotten that yet.
How can we make it work?
Well, part of it is not to handcuff everything and snuff it constantly. We are in our own downward spiral of our own making. And it's sad to say. But let me give you an insight to the economics. It costs about $200 a square foot to do new construction. Let's say you can do a mid-rise, about $200 a square foot. But that would include your, not just interior space, but also your hallways, your lobbies, your parking spaces and such. So to get that net square footage for that usable space inside, it's costing you about $300 a square foot for that usable space. As a point of reference, probably the premier property on the bay right now, probably commanding the most value, Mariners Bay Condominium and Majorca Tower, that's selling at $165 a square foot and $225 a square foot. So even if you got the land for free, and you were developer, you got the land for free, and you're going to try to do some development over there to replace one of those buildings. And first of all, Majorca, which is 14 stories high, can only go to 35 feet, can go to 3 stories from the 14 stories it is now. For every $3,000 you put into the project, you'll be lucky to get $2,000 back. Bottom line, if it doesn't work over there at one of the best locations, how is it going to work anywhere in the city? How will anything work here? And that's why we don't see it. And that's why we need to have, somebody has to go out on a limb to be able to do something bigger, better, and whoever the developer is going to take a giant risk to do something like that. It will be a giant risk because there are comparables around there and the neighbors just don't, rise to the occasion. And so they have to now overcome that, take that risk. And I don't know if it's whether it's on the water, whether it's on a park, whether they create a park, or sometimes it would happen over a great business district that's very vibrant. But we need to have that. We don't have that. We can't think that just having a parking garage downtown is going to salvage or save this city.
Sir, we're going to need.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments?
My name is Kenneth Each. I own 3 properties on Emerald Drive. I came to this great city in 1970 after fighting the war in Vietnam. They gave me a home. It gave me a job. I patrolled the streets of this city. I rose to become the police chief of this city. I know the city like the back of my hand. And I seen the downward spiral start in 1980, thereabouts. When we passed a 4-story height moratorium, we weren't going to go any higher than 4 stories. And what happened? We're going to keep this as a bedroom community. We certainly did. We had the homeless sleeping under I-95. It was a bedroom community, all right. The police officers in the city used to say, this is the town that time forgot. I was hoping tonight that I would see a vision for the future, something paramount, something great. Instead, I hear brownfields, no increase in density, no increase in height. My gosh, are we going into the retrograde and going backwards, back to 1980? Or are we looking to the future? I hope we can look to the future. I love this city. This city gave me a home, a job, a purpose of being. And what do I see? Stagnation. This wasn't a plan. Hear from the people that live here. Get out on the street and actually see what's going on. Go to Northeast 6th Avenue, West Dixie Highway, Arch Creek, Northwest 7th Avenue. We have the capacity to be great. You know, when I hear Northwest 7th Avenue, we don't have the infrastructure. At the Planning Commission, I had asked our Public Works Director, can we support 30 and 40 story high buildings? He said, yes, we can. I go down to the VA, or I go downtown to the courthouse, or I go downtown to the county building. And as I drive down there, I see these majestic buildings along I-95. Why can't we have them here in North Miami? Because we think small. Are we second-class citizens? Or don't we have the same goals and aspirations? I drive down 125th Street. That thing hasn't changed in the 40 years that I lived here. It's disgraceful. I want to see us go high, beautiful, bring in new buildings. North Bayshore Drive, between 123rd Street to the Majorca Towers. There's no reason why we don't go high there and look at the beautiful bay. My God, I hear, oh, I don't want to go high. I don't want to look like Aventura. I don't want to look like Sunny Isles. Those are beautiful cities with a beautiful tax base that people are paying less tax, but geez, the value of the property is a hell of a lot more than we have here. This plan, folks, isn't going to work. I'm going to tell you, the consensus on the Planning Commission at the time, it's not going to work. We want to see real, meaningful development. Increase our density, increase our height, bring in beautiful projects. You tell me, well, oh my gosh, nobody came to us with anything higher than 4 to 5 stories. You put the height up, and the people will come. I look at Biscayne Landings. If we want another 20 stories on those buildings up there, we would have some high-end development up there, not the mediocre stuff that we're going to get by staying low. Mr. Planner, Ms. Planner, please, I know you're doing your level best. We said think outside the box, dare to be great, think outside the box, bring in new, beautiful development, high and density. Please, I beg you. This is the last chance we have in the city.
Hello? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, any other comments? comments, we're going to ask you to come up to the podium. We're having some issues here with the mic.
Good. Speak here? Oh, okay. Thank you. Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. I appreciate you all hosting this workshop tonight. Thank you all for coming out. I was here when you had that daunting task of, and I think I helped make a great decision to hire your firm back then, because the comp plan in 2005 had not been updated in almost 30 years. By law, it's supposed to be updated every 7 years. We were 25 years behind. And so trying with that plan to bring all the changes in at one time was very difficult. And your firm did make some really great recommendations to the city. 95% of them I think I concurred with. You were for more density, more height, more variety of buildings and businesses and mixed use. They do this business every single day. They do it all over the country, all over the state. They know what's going on. They know what developers want to be done and not. But because of some people were nervous about too much, too fast, we compromised. And I had to compromise on areas where we really should have a 10-story waterfront building. We compromised down to our detriment. And I wish I would have fought harder. But we had to get the plan through. Move forward 7 years. The economy was a disaster for a lot of people. But the issues I want to take with tonight is that let's look back at some of the recommendations you all did do that we weren't successful in incorporating, because it's a lot of the same things you're saying right now, what some of the speakers said. The other thing is, I know numerous developers that want to come and do quality projects within this city, but they don't want to go through the red tape. They don't want to go through the aggravation that it takes. You pointed out Mr. Talbert's project. I forgot the name of it. It's the first one up there. What's Talbert's project called? Causeway Village. It's been on the books and been trying to go through, approved by the planning department, the planning commission, over a year ago. It's stuck in limbo because times have changed, and they want to go 80 feet, 90 feet, 100 feet. But it's going to take a supermajority of the council to allow that. That's a mistake that I made by saying that it takes 4 out of the 5 council people to do an amendment. You're elected by the majority in this city, and the majority on the council should change the rules, that it didn't have to be a supermajority. And I hope that in this comprehensive plan that the city council removes that 4/5 vote and bring it back to a 3-2 or whatever it may be, a majority rule, just like any other item that comes before the council. Because if you don't, it only takes one person to stagnate a lot of redevelopment in our city. And people don't want to come and risk the tens of thousands of dollars that they have to do before they even get before the council. The permitting fees, to get before the planning commission costs you thousands of dollars just to present your nice project that you want to do. And if you need a text amendment or you want to change things, it costs you thousands and thousands of dollars to ask if you can have permission to come spend millions of dollars in our city. So we do need more density. We need more height in selected areas. We have the extra capacity. We still have the bank of units because we identified we had thousands of units available in theory that our services could accommodate. We haven't used those all up yet. And I would love the day where we have to tell somebody, we don't have the extra units to attribute to your project, your 300 units or 400 units, that we have to do something else, or we have to make our improvements, which we should be doing. So that would be something really great, but we're not there. We have thousands of units in our bank, as you might say, that our facilities can accommodate, but we don't have the people here. We are keeping people into building minimum housing on Northeast 6th Avenue. We're not encouraging the people outside of Biscayne landings to come and build a beautiful 5, 10, 15-story waterfront building because we're so scared that something might actually change in this city. Folks, I've been here 25, 30 years, most of my life, and I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about the future. Don't build for the past 50 years. We need to build for the next 50 years. And as Mr. Prevotel said, look around. Sunny Isles, Bay Harbor. Bay Harbor, one of the most conservative zoning communities in this area, now has cranes all over the place building beautiful townhomes going to 10 stories, going to 7 stories. That island is looking beautiful. They're protecting some of their old buildings, but they're also inviting the new buildings. And Bay Harbor Island is really transforming itself. Look at Midtown, Wynwood. Nobody would go down there after dark 5 years ago. Look what you're going down there now. People are spending $10 million an acre for property on 36th Street. Who would have thought that just a few years ago? Because the city of Miami is saying yes, they did the Miami 21. It was very, very difficult process. Very difficult process. But you know what? The doom and gloom didn't happen. And just like the doom and gloom when we did our comp plan didn't happen. People said, oh my God, you're going to turn into Aventura, you're going to turn into Brickell, you're going to turn into this. Oh my gosh, if we actually turned into Brickell, how bad would that be? Okay? You know, just to say. But we can do improvement, maintain a livable community, but folks, we have to plan for the future. Let's take some of the more of the recommendations that the planners had made years ago and see if we can incorporate it in a orderly way. But to say that we're going to move a plan forward that is going to be our Bible, as the planning department says, for the next 7 years, that doesn't recognize density increases, height increases, or a variety of new zoning components is silly. You talk about climate change. Well, you want people to raise, one of the proposals I saw in another city, you want them to raise their building. Well, you can't raise the building so much because you only can go some areas 35 feet, 40 feet. You want hidden parking, but you put a parking garage on the bottom of somebody's building, then you only can put 2 floors of residential. It doesn't pay for itself. So we're contradicting ourselves back and forth. And so the Planning Commission is really enthusiastic about making some suggestions because they've seen other stuff. The residents should be encouraged to, again, not just tonight, but even another workshop, and also be prepared to go before the City Council of what they really want, and not just what a few select people think the city wants. Thank you very much.
I always struggle with talking. It makes me really nervous. But I've heard a lot of people talk about the heights, and I'm Sarah McDevitt, and I live at 14490 Northeast 10th Avenue. The height restrictions, and honestly, it's one of those things I struggle with, but I'm this evening being sold on the idea of increasing heights and everything in our community. But one of the things that concerns me most is the green spaces. And I know that you said that it's part of the plan, but I think that when you read the comments that came from the workshop, that just over and over, the sun-baked main corridor, the just unwalkable commercial areas that we have, we need to even question many of the workshops I've been to when we talk about the canopy in our community, that there's so many restrictions on the kinds of plants that we can plant. We need to question those restrictions and ask why. Why are we restricting the kinds of trees we can plant? Why are we restricting the trees in the medians? Why, if these things are restrictions that were written however many years ago, we need to think about whether or not there's a chance that we can revisit those restrictions and ask for change, because the change is not happening with, you know, a few palm trees being planted along the medians or a few palm trees being stuck in on the corner at 125th Street. We need to have more green spaces, and that should be a priority. Thanks.
Thank you. I know a lot of people will say that I'm anti-development, but I am very pro-responsible development. Our city has a gridlock of traffic, and I appreciate the fact that you want to make sure that our city has the infrastructure and the water and the sewer system to accommodate. We cannot just put up skyscrapers if we can't support them. They may look nice, but we've got to be able to support them. Mr. Mayor Burns talks about the high-rises on our waterfront high-rises. We should have all these waterfront high-rises, but there are only about 3 parcels on North Bay Shore that could have high-rises. One is a 4-story condo building, which is not going to go down. On the other end, we have the Mallorca. It's a 20-foot or 20-story condo. It's not going anywhere. 15, 20, whatever. It's not going anywhere. It's condos. The only parcel that could be possibly redeveloped is Mr. Prevatel's. We spoke about it. He's got a low-rise apartment building. That is the only parcel that would even have the opportunity to be taken up. The rest of it is built out. It's not going anywhere. The last parcel right now is a 1-acre parcel, which we all know about, in the corner off the bridge across from Keystone Point. High-rise, I don't think it will sustain. We have Dade County ordinances. It is bayfront. You've got 25-foot setbacks if you're on the bay, and a high-rise, the density will not work there. I'm okay with high-rise. I'm okay with building high. You want to go up in Biscayne Landing, you want to go in the center of the city, but you've got to do it responsibly. So I'm not against that, but we've got to watch the gridlock. I hope you're looking at our master corridor plan that talks about the evacuation routes and not starting putting hundreds of units on evacuation routes that the city of Miami Beach wants to use, and I'm talking 123rd Street. And the Causeway project is right now 55 feet. It's a commercial use. So what they're looking for is a zoning use, and they're looking to go up about 75 feet with a lot of bonus density. The people who live in those areas, I don't blame them for not wanting gridlock. The gridlock, you cannot get out of our neighborhood in Keystone sometimes. You can't get up and down Biscayne Boulevard. It's only getting worse. We have growth. We have 4,500 units going up in Biscayne Landing. We should have more growth in downtown. So I'm not against that, but I am speaking for a very large community that is not looking for more gridlock when you can't get out of your houses in the morning. I can't even get out of my office on Biscayne Boulevard. The traffic goes from 125th Street all the way to 130th Street, and you can't even get out. So let's start, let's be responsible about it, and please look at our master corridor studies because they have addressed that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Alston. I live 1140 Northwest 125th Street in Sunkist Grove on the west side. I feel there are many opportunities for development on the west side. I sometimes get discouraged when I come to meetings and most of the attention is put on the east side, and when you refer to downtown, you refer to, I guess, in this area. And many times the west side, which I'm speaking specifically about 7th Avenue, is not considered or ignored. I feel there are tremendous opportunities for growth on 7th Avenue. I was told, I'm not sure, that Office Max is closing, and they're closing on 163rd Street Mall. Someone, they said, I don't know if it's a rumor, Walmart bought it $700 million. They're going to tear everything down and build condos, high condos, and the stores will be on the first floor. I don't know if this is true. But I feel there are tremendous opportunities on 7th Avenue for business as well as entrepreneur partnerships. And I would like to see, and I'm here to speak out to say that please don't forget 7th Avenue when the plans are being made. We need housing, and we need jobs as well. And we want a beautiful city on our side of town as well. I see 7th Avenue West as being West Side Biscayne Boulevard. with all the beauty that's on Biscayne Boulevard now. I see that on 7th Avenue. And I want to see that kind of development on our side of town with businesses and housing and condos. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a minute. You're up next.
Sylvia Mayolo, 100 Northeast 124th Street. Yes. I believe we have to be more realistic about the city. And I think it's not enough money to build. And we have to realize we count with our places, and we have to clean the city. We have to make the city green and look different, like Miami Shores, like Biscayne Park, like I used to live in California, and I live close to Palo Alto, Saratoga, and there are beautiful places and no high building, beautiful places because the people care for what they have. And I see they too certain here, the city start to do sidewalk on North Miami. 134th Street between 6th Avenue and 4th Avenue East. It was nicer before because it was a lot of grass, a lot of green. I don't know if it's necessary to build this sidewalk, but I saw oak tree, big oak tree, to take out because they have to build the sidewalk. And it's supposed we cannot take the oak tree from where they are. They didn't plant anything back. And it's time to start to make a beauty of the city, to clean the city, to care each other, to care for our neighbor, to care for the community, to care for new people to come because the place is nicer. A lot of people, they want to invest and come, and for new, I'm an artist, to care for new artists to come to do like Wynwood, a place like that. But we have to fight for that, and we have to try and to help. In that way, it's not a matter of high building because the money is not there, but just to make it green is not as much as money. Yeah.
All right, sir. Are you sure? Okay. Here you go. Please state your name.
Good evening. My name is Fred Stock, and while I do not live in North Miami, I am the president of Jewish Community Services of South Florida, which is the building right across the street, this tall building in the middle of downtown. As part of some of the services that we provide in this community, we run employment programs for folks who can't find jobs. And many of the clients who come to that employment program live in North Miami. They're residents of this community. In addition, we give out federal emergency management funds to folks who cannot afford to pay rent, cannot afford to pay an electric bill, and we distribute about $60,000 a year of funds to predominantly residents who live in the city of North Miami who have this need. And so we see in our agency many of the residents in this community who are struggling. And approximately 60 to 70%, think about this for a second, 60 to 70% of the residents who live in North Miami are struggling financially. And this is from a report from United Way called the Alice Report. I encourage you to go online to the United Way. You can see a copy of this report. It breaks down every municipality in Dade County. North Miami is struggling financially. You heard the 9.8% unemployment, which is about double the state of Florida. So why did I say all this? It's a preamble to the following comment. I am involved in the DAPAC committee here in downtown, looking at possibly redeveloping downtown. Councilman Keys, we also own property, residential property in 2 areas in North Miami, both of which are very close to the downtown. I listened to the councilwoman, and she used the word gridlock to describe the traffic conditions on Biscayne Boulevard. I can't say I disagree. My wife and I live in Surfside. I work here. I travel that corridor every day for the last 7 years, and I understand what she's talking about. There's another gridlock, and some people have spoke to it here. The gridlock here that I hear is an inability to agree on the council level as to what development actually means and what it means for this city. Until there is agreement on some level of the importance of redeveloping the community and providing the opportunity for everyone in this community to participate in growth and to be the beneficiary of that growth, nothing will happen. So I would ask, and I don't know how you do this, that there needs to be some committee process or discussion between the residents and the leadership on the council to actually come up with a workable plan that we can agree on. Because if you don't agree, you're going to have gridlock. That's all there is to it. It ain't rocket science. We're all smart enough to see that. And from what I've heard tonight and to the other times I've attended, we have gridlock. So nothing gets done. Okay? Now, the staff of the city, and I work very closely with Tanya and the other folks in the planning department, are making heroic efforts to get something moving. But without the support and agreement from the council and the residents of the community to actually come together and agree as to how to proceed with development, I just don't believe anything is going to happen.
You'd like to go up here? Okay.
Well, good evening. My name is Kevin Seifried. I live on the west side of the city of North Miami. At about the age of 4, my family moved to the west side of the city of North Miami. Now, for those first 10 years after that, we lived in lots of different houses. Mother always said it was to get to a better neighborhood, but I thought we couldn't pay the rent. I don't know, you decide. I thought moving 2 or 3 blocks down the road was not necessarily a move to a better neighborhood, but, you know, families have different perspectives, and I have my historical recollections. The house I now live in, I've been in since November 1 of 1966. Next year, I will celebrate 50 years in that particular house on the west side of North Miami. And when I look at North Miami and the downtown community, I'm endlessly reminded of the Andy Griffith shows. And, you know, I used to watch those as a child in black and white, you know, but color came along in the 1960s. And television changed, and North Miami just didn't. We have the same downtown now that we had 50 years ago. It's quaint, it's nice, it's tired, and well past its time. MoCA, beautiful opportunities. I think, sadly, we did ourselves in by not passing the bond issue to expand MoCA. Downtown visioning fails to include any creative thinking to expand the MoCA Plaza. No sense of trade-offs in buildings, no sense of what we might do when we look at downtown. We got to save what we've got and then work with a few square feet. That's not the purpose of visioning. I see an absence of a policy statement here to develop and enhance infrastructure to provide for future growth. I personally am an advocate of increasing height and density. I've traveled to some limited extent. I've been to Europe, I've been to Paris and London, and I've been to Berlin, and I've been to Prague. They have, on the whole, historic areas but they have a great deal of height and density that we don't have. And what that does for traffic, it makes their neighborhoods very walkable. Barcelona, beautiful example of a walkable city. Of course, so was Berlin, so was Paris. Population density gives you the tax base to support transportation, something we don't really have right now. When I look at the future of this city, I see the height restrictions as being patently unrealistic. The earlier comments, no developer really wants to come here because it isn't worth the effort. They aren't going to make the money. When we look at the projects that were highlighted for new development, we politely failed to state that those are heavily government subsidized projects, 2 of the 3. And the reason their height is where it's at is because there wasn't enough government funding to do any more. So when you crunch the dollars, that's what you get. A minimal statement, basic block house, not creative, and God only knows what it will look like in 10 years. We need broader visioning. We really do. We suffer from a lack of vision. Yes, we can say our city council hasn't been particularly visionary in their policies. And this plan, I must say, as much as I appreciate the hard work that went into it, I see an absence of vision. Staff clearly stayed away from building heights and density issues. Obviously, a message was telegraphed to staff, don't go there. For whatever reason, don't go there if you want to remain with us. There's something wrong with that mentality. There's something wrong with that approach. And we need to change the telegraphing significantly. Yes, there has been some disharmony in our municipal government, on our council, and that has to change when council finally recognizes that we have to have development. It means increasing the population, it means increasing building heights, and it means thinking outside the box. We've had no significant redevelopment on the west side of the city along 7th Avenue for, I guess since the Burger King was built, you know. There are some interesting repurposing projects that are being planned for the east side, and I wish them a great deal of luck and success. But clearly, we've got to start thinking outside the box, not inside the box. Our thinking has been small-minded. We've lost the vision, sadly. These are not the 1950s. Andy Griffith grew up, you know. Times have changed, and we need to start thinking in color. We need to start thinking with a sense of dynamism and excitement, and that's really not what we're getting with this plan, and I'm sorry to say that. But thank you, and I'll give you my address for the record. I live at 12665 Northwest 8th Avenue, and maybe next year when my 50th year in that house comes along, I'll invite all of you to come to the yard for a little party.